Good evening, internet audience. Uh, the purpose of this short video is to share something I've experienced personally, which is God made the universe, and then from the universe He made us. So there's some laws and principles that were set in motion that are here to help us. We're part and parcel of the divine flow of creative intelligence behind everything in the universe. We're composed of atoms. An atom joins with another atom, other atoms to become molecules. Molecules join to other molecules to become cells, and cells join with other cells to become tissue. Tissues join with tissues and they form organs, and then the organs are composed inside of our one organism called the human body, the biological structure. Everything is composed of atoms. Atoms cannot be destroyed nor created. So that's another way of saying that we're immortal. We'll never die. We're not capable of dying. We are consciousness, if you will. Not merely consciousness, but we'll leave it at that. So that's a good place to start, is consciousness. If you want to change your life, if you want to raise your vibratory rate and your frequency at which those vibrations occur, the easiest way to do that is to change your thinking. Literally, you have to change how you think. Change how you think, you change how you feel, you change how you behave. If you put your fingers, your hand on your throat, your thyroid, you can feel vibrations as you talk. So the source of these vibrations, these words that are coming out of our mouth, emanating from our mouth, occur first as thoughts. So basically, literally, our thoughts are vibrations. So if we are in the act, say, of depression, we say with our mouth, "I'm depressed," or we tell someone, "I'm depressed." Literally, we're actually in the act of depressing ourselves. And depression is not something external to us that just like attacks you. It just pounces on you, leaps on you, and just overtakes you. Depression occurs from within us, from within our mind. The minute you say I'm depressed, the body makes it so. Our thoughts are not merely intentions. Our thoughts are literally commandments, more correctly. So our body responds, and our body does exactly what we tell our body to do. It starts as thoughts. And so before we say anything, it's first a thought. Before we perform an action, it's first a thought. And so everything, our whole life is shaped by these vibrations that occur as thoughts. To take it a step further, just like our words come from somewhere, our words come from our thoughts. Where do our thoughts come from? So I'm going to inform you where they come from. So our thoughts come from what I call pre-seminal thought, or thought before thought. So pre-seminal thought, which is thought before thought. So I don't want to go there, though. That's a whole nother can of worms, a whole nother subject altogether. So I want to get back to the purpose of this video, which is really to raise your vibratory rate, to change the frequency at which you're living at, to live on a higher plane, to live on higher levels, planes, dimensions. So the easiest way to do that is you can change your frequency. First of all, the most dynamic way, in my opinion, is to change your thoughts. So say you're resonating at a thought vibration, like happiness. Happiness is on the higher end of the scale. So the lower end of that scale would be sadness. Which is a state, sadness and happiness are on the same scale. Just the only thing that separates them is they vary only in degree, but they're the same thing. So what is that thing that they are? They're emotion. They're emotions. And emotions, we vibrate at certain emotional states, certain emotions. So if you want to change your life, change your vibratory rate at which you are vibrating at. Change the thought from I'm sad to I'm happy. And then there's another higher, way higher frequency which you can neutralize. You don't have to be on either end of the scale. You can. There is a happy place in the middle that neutralizes everything, all states, and it's a state of peace that really can't be explained. You can explain it to the best of your ability, but in its true essence, you really can't describe that state. You can describe it in your best way of doing so, but to truly be able to describe it, it would be without words at all. It's more not even a feeling, more as like a consciousness that pretty much neutralizes all states, and it's definitely attached. It's kind of like a place in between the heart and the mind, and it's unchanging. There's a wheel turning inside of us from happiness to sadness, and all the time. So we're constantly from one extreme to the next, happy or sad. But there is this state of peace that is in the middle, that is neither happy nor sad. As a matter of fact, you can experience in this state of peace. You can actually experience it, happiness and sadness, but return to that state of peace or remain at that state of peace. Now it's kind of like living in that state, and it's a most wonderful and beautiful thing. But in order to change your life and to change your vibratory rate, you need to practice what's called negative self-talk. Negative self-talk is like self-incrimination, self-hatred, self-loathing, demeaning, belittling, putting ourselves down. Sometimes this is a shared trait that we pick up from childhood. A lot of us tend to live out the way we were raised, and we live it out in our adult lives, which means basically we're really not being an adult. We're basically being like grown babies. We're being spiritual children. We're being children instead of spiritual adults. So we want to change this frequency and this vibratory rate at which we resonate these things. So let's say to change your life, you need to practice a moment by moment awareness, and we don't change by one day at a time or even one step at a time. We change one moment to the next, and that's how that occurs. So one moment, if I say I make a mistake and say, "Oh, you dumbass," I'm talking to myself. I'm a dumbass. Oh, you're such a dumbass. You're talking to yourself. You're resonating that frequency, and your whole body is going to respond to that frequency and that rate at which that's occurring. What you're telling to yourself, because remember, your words are not just simple intentions. They're definitely more closer to commandments. It's like a remote control. I say what I want my body to do, and my body responds. My body makes it so. It makes it happen. It makes it real to the rest of my being in any moment. So say I have this thought come up, I'm a dumbass. Immediately you can change that vibration by simply saying, I'm not a dumbass. I'm whole. I'm happy. I am in a complete state of wellness. I'm intelligent. I'm smart. I'm empowered. So immediately, if you practice that, if you nip that self-talk, that negative self-talk, you can nip it in the bud immediately by taking that and changing that vibratory rate by making these affirmations, these positive intentions, which are literally commandments. And you'll find that your body immediately experiences that your vibratory rate has went from the low end of the scale to the high end of the scale. So let me explain this. Changing your frequency, changing your vibratory rate from the low end of the scale to the next. Let's talk about temperature. We're going to use temperature. So say you have a thermometer on the wall. Let's mentally, what does that thermometer gauge? What does it measure? What's the metric? It measures heat and cold. So a thermometer measuring heat and cold, basically, it doesn't. There is really no low end or high end of the scale. But we're going to use this analogy. So let's say that on one end of the scale there's heat, and on one end of the scale there's cold, and one is on one end and one is on the other end of the scale. Somewhere when heat, somewhere heat becomes cold and cold becomes heat. So one day is the hottest summer. The next minute it starts cooling down when it starts falling winter. It starts moving close to December and January. The season starts changing everything, and the weather starts changing. So it starts becoming cooler. So somewhere the heat and the cold they meet, somewhere like we'll say hypothetically in the middle. So basically, heat and cold, we've been taught that heat and cold are two different things, but they're actually not. And the same thing that they are is actually called temperature. Heat and cold are nothing more or less than temperature. They're not opposites. They're the same exact thing on that scale. They meet somewhere on that scale. So this is the same way where we can measure our thoughts. So if I have a thought that says, hey, oh, I'm a dumbass, or I'm unintelligent, or I demean myself by many different ways, or I'm experiencing self-hatred that I'm practicing on myself in that moment, I can take that vibratory rate and change my vibratory rate immediately by entering into a state of love, self-love, instead of self-hatred. So in that very moment that I say, I don't hate myself, I love myself, immediately you'll experience the sensation occur to you. If you're being genuine and authentic with yourself in that moment, and you're sincerely practicing genuinely this mode of changing self-hatred toward self-love. So hatred and love are the same thing on the same scale as well. The only thing that is different about them is that they vary by degree, but they're the same thing. And what is love and hate? Emotion. So they're the same exact thing on the same scale. They just vary by degree. So in order to change your vibratory rate, you have to practice an awareness. You have to be present, and it has to be practiced. Just for someone to say you don't have to practice this and it just happens overnight is bullshit. It can be. It doesn't just occur like that. Like Rome wasn't built in a day, nor was it destroyed in a day. So in order to raise your vibratory rate, you have to have a moment by moment awareness. When negative self-talk arises, you have to nip it in the bud immediately and change that vibratory rate to what it really boils down to is the truth of the situation. Your original state is not a state that where you are demeaning yourself, belittling yourself, or putting yourself down. We carry a lot of these into our adult lives because they were passed on to us, because someone that talked to us in these ways actually had experienced these things in their own life in one way, fashion, form, or another. So this law of changing your vibratory rate is literally called the law of polarity. So the law of polarity is another way of saying like the heat and the cold, or hate and love. Changing the law of it, which is the law of polarity. So you want to practice this law of polarity. So every single moment you have to practice this, and it needs to be practiced daily. And what will happen is you will form a habit by doing this, by practicing it. Once the habit is formed, eventually it should become second nature. It should become no longer, and since it's a good habit, it's a habit that you want to form because it's beneficial. Why would you not, out of your own soul's judgment, want you to be the best self you can possibly be? Because the truth is, unless we are totally, completely genuine, authentic, and transparent with ourselves, we cannot be transparent or honest with others. And the goal is to help others. And so we're all interrelated and interconnected. We're all here for one another, whether we want to believe that or not, or whatever. That's why things like racism separate and divide us. Racism is nothing more than a form of fear, which is on that same scale of emotions, an emotion that you can experience. But fear is so far removed from our actual original state, which is another way of saying the truth. So the truth is that in our original state, that we are loving, we're caring, we're kind, we're sharing. We're not divided by fears such as hypocrisy, elitism, and racism. These are nothing more than forms of fear. And anything that you do not understand, you naturally fear it. And that's a way of saying God or the universe has sent me fear, and that's just not the case. The universe is not a cloud of ailments, another burden on our shoulders. The truth of the situation is that we are immortal, we cannot die, and that God has set these laws, or this divine creative flow of intelligence has put these laws in motion, these principles, and we're taught just the opposite. Through public education, through media, through newspapers, through our parents educating us when we're children, and they learn from their parents, and they learn from their parents, and they learn from their parents. So who's right and who's wrong? A lot of us discover that our parents, a lot of things that they believed, that they taught us, they actually believed, but we find out later on that some of these things may not have been true. So this law of polarity will help you to become situated in your actual state. At first, when you're practicing these things, you're moving toward your true position and situation in life. And once you learn the law of polarity and you master it, and negative self-talk should eventually stop. You should not experience it no more. There comes a point where it becomes second nature, and your life is completely different, and you resonate on a higher frequency. You're going to lose a lot of friends. You may lose some family members, but you have to determine, out of your own soul's judgment, what's best for yourself in the course of life for you. Do you want to be healthy? Do you want to be happy? Do you want to be whole? Do you want things to no longer bother you and bother your frequency, bother your energy? You have to protect your energy at all times. And the best ways to protect your energy is to guard your gateways, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, what you hear, what you watch on TV, what you listen to on the radio. So these things disrupt our actual nature. And so a lot of people do not believe that you can change the dictates of your nature, but you actually can. And this law of polarity is one of those God-given laws in which to do so. There is another law called the law of neutralization. That gets into that state of peace I was talking about, but that will be on another video. So that is the law of polarity. I ask you to try it and to practice it, and I promise you it does work, and your life is about to change if you do practice it. So that concludes this video. Peace, love, and happiness to all the internet audience, to your families. I pray that your goals, your aspirations, your hopes, and your dreams will be fulfilled, and they very easily can be once you come in alignment with the universe and how it works best. God bless.